Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Two Dimes and a Token. I am one of your hosts. Today, I'm your only host, Brucknasty in the house. So, with this episode, we invited back a magnificent guest. We were super stoked to have her back, Miss Jessica Straughn of Supportive Counseling LLC out in the Orlando area. She gave us almost 2 hours of her time, man, and she was super informative. Kanyeezy and myself felt like we were kind of sitting through our own kind of learning session where she was the teacher and we were the students. But we really broke down a lot of different barriers when it comes to men's health. We broke down a lot of different reasonings of the reactions of men in certain situations. Just some really, really interesting conversation, man. And we were so stoked to have her back, and we were so happy that she was excited to come back. And I was really glad we got to have Kanyeezy on this one too. Big advocate of therapy, and Jessica really comes in and kind of drives the hammer home of breaking through that stigma of the difficulty of men expressing themselves and really getting out there and choosing therapy as a great option for themselves. So again, she's absolutely magnificent at what she does. Not only that, but she's an amazing person. Love having the opportunity to chat with her every chance we get. So before we get in the episode, we got to let you know this episode is brought to you by none other than Death Grip Wax. Death Grip Wax is a leading edge mustache wax company that takes your face from a 6 to a 10. So if you're looking to put the best designs in the entire planet on your face, Death Grip Wax is the company for you. Okay, so what you can do is you can go to the website, deathgripwax.com, or you can go to the links below in the YouTube page, or any one of our social media sites. Use the promo code, all caps, 2 dimes and a token to get 20% off your entire purchase. That's right. You can get a year's worth of mustache wax. You can get beard oils. You can get the nice satchel that they provide to you. All different types of products to make sure that your facial hair is top notch. And again, you can order as much as you want. You get 20% off your entire purchase with promo code, all caps, 2 dimes and a token. And one thing we didn't announce as we got into everything, our drink of the pod here, which is unofficially sponsored by Terramana Tequila. We're still working on that, waiting for The Rock to hit us back. We slid in the DMs, and we know that he saw it, whatever. But whatever, we'll wait for him. On the other notes as well, we are still waiting for Will Compton and Taylor Lewan from Bussin' with the Boys to hit us back as we slid into both their DMs after they gave a verbal confirmation that they are going to come on the podcast, 2 dimes and a token. So we are still waiting on you guys, man. You're leaving the boys hanging. For a podcast that's about the boys, and then you leave the boys hanging, that's rough, dude. It's absolutely rough. So it's not a great look, but we still love you. We're super hyped to have you guys on. So once again, we're waiting on you. And without further ado, please go and hit that subscribe button on the YouTube page. That is how we grow. That's how we continue pushing this thing. So please go to all our social medias as well. Follow, subscribe, all the fun crap that everybody loves to do with all that fun stuff. And after that, without further ado, please enjoy, as a matter of fact, I know you will enjoy, Miss Jessica Straughn from Supportive Counseling LLC. It was so unique, and when he was telling the story, he started like self-evaluating very quickly. And when he did that, he's like, all right, I need to make this simple. So it's like, these things make me feel like crap.
Yep.
If I'm gonna keep drinking alcohol or do this, I need to accept the fact that I'm gonna feel terrible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he also introduces psychedelics, and he does a lot of marijuana, but at the same time, like when he did those things, his personal experience was, hey, like if I do this on a very small scale, like I feel great and I can focus and I can really get into what I'm doing. And he found himself in a much happier place to where he can now work out. He gets in shape and he does this and he does that. Yeah, and then as he started developing more and more and more, now he runs a program where he invites men out to like a camp that he does for like a week. and that's like his job. And then he also runs
Wow.
his Not Dead Yet apparel that he
I
has.
saw that. I like that
Yeah, it
term.
was it was it was honestly such an experience because we day two was really cool. He had already been there. I mean, to be honest, both of us were like, I don't really want to leave. Like, this place is incredible.
Wow.
And he has this gym that he built. He doesn't charge anybody to be there, right? And he's like, friends, family, like, come on, come in here and just get
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're lifting weights or whether you're, doing laps around the building, or he has this giant sauna that he set up outside. It gets like
Wow.
170 degrees. And then he has these two cold plunges where they're like high tech. So it's constant moving water, but it keeps it at like 50 or 60 degrees, something like that. And I don't know. Have you ever done a cold plunge like that?
Not outside of high school.
Yeah.
After
So
like track and stuff where they had like just ice and buckets.
yeah. So these were intense. So you'd go in the sauna and you do 30 minutes in the sauna, and then
Oh.
you would do 3 minutes in the cold plunge. And like one thing I noticed from personal experience is when I got in, it was like, oh man, it's you understand how your body reacts to things. Like my mind was clear because I was an athlete for so long. It was
Mm-hmm.
very easy for me to get into what we were doing. And the guy who was helping us with the breathing exercises, like even said it. He's like, yeah, you did really good. But when you get in and you go from hot to intense cold like that, your body starts to like it's your heart rate starts going and you can feel your body going to fight or flight, right?
Absolutely.
And you have to control your breathing, understand what you're doing, accept the fact that you're going to be here for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And once you do that, like 3 minutes goes by like nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge like distress tolerance builder of
Yes.
exactly like you're saying is we're in an uncomfortable, distressing situation
Mm-hmm.
and we're becoming accustomed to it by slowing our breath and acclimating to it. That's very cool.
Yeah. It was honestly super. It was super cool, and the environment he built is just based upon like, hey, I have a life, and I'm gonna live it to be to the fullest,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do the things I enjoy, and things that end up hurting me in the long run, I'm just not gonna do anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And I think one of the best clips we got out of it, and I'll let you. I'm sorry, I'll let you comment on it after. But remember, we were sitting in our friend's apartment. That's where we filmed it, and we had this short 8-second clip of just us talking. We caught Matt talking to Ben, and he's like, life is hard enough as it is. Don't don't be a problem in
Why
your
choose
life.
misery?
Yeah, exactly. You have to be self aware enough to understand. Like, don't stand in your own way. Like you sit here and you say, "Oh, I want to do this and I want to do that," but you go out every night and you get wasted, or you're doing this or you're doing that. Like, that's cool if you want to,
Mm-hmm.
but understand the consequences of that. Don't have higher ambition and then do things to counteract your ambition.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to watch it.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yeah, I feel like he's just completely aware every moment of his life. Like it's a gift. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
be here. I don't owe anybody anything. So you're around somebody that looks at life and he's completely free.
Yeah.
Not I don't have to do this for this job or they pay me to be who I am. And if
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to be around me, you don't have to be around me. When you went to his gym, like he said, they don't charge anybody. But it's some of the most amazing people. MMA fighters, people that are just pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone each and every day around each other. And that's the whole community. That's why I
That's
was like, you don't want to
amazing.
leave here because,
It's contagious, I bet.
oh my God.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So what is I want to get into that with you though. Like, obviously you hear how we sat down with Matt and you hear that stuff, and he uses a different, obviously much different tactics than what you would use. Like, if you have a man that's coming in with, let's just say, I don't know, what are the most common? Let's go with that. What are the most common issues you'll get with men coming in and asking for help?
So most of the guys that I work with are coming with anger problems, anger
Yeah,
issues. Most of them have been given like an ultimatum by somebody in their life of, enough's enough. We're not going to live like this anymore. You need to, you know, get in better mindset or treat us better or
yeah,
whatever's going on is not going to continue. So that is most of the time how I get introduced to the male clients I work with, because typically I work with women. so they somehow find me and we connect. But what happens in our sessions after that is really what's the cool part is like we had talked about why choose misery or why be in your own way or be a victim of your own life. And they really start to open up and be like, okay, I can be happy. I am not happy right now. That's why I feel stressed at work or I'm having issues with my partner or I feel like I'm a failure as a parent and I want my life to be better and I want to be happier. So how can we make that happen?
Yeah. I feel like in that realm as a guy for a normal reaction, you end up I would feel like most guys who don't venture down the help path, they kind of like, dude, your expectations are unrealistic and they just dip.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because that's kind of like that's how I did things for a long time. You know what I mean? Like you get to a point where you're like, bro, I'm working on this, this, and this. I think we kind of hit that a little bit, very, very small amount last time we talked, but that's what I've always done. What would you?
To me, I feel like again, when you're dealing with stuff, when do you talk about that? Guys don't generally talk. We're taught to keep everything in at all times. So when you do that and you live that way, and you have a sense where your feelings don't matter, then you tend to lash out. So she's dealing with the aftermath of that when people have lost control and they don't know how to gain control again.
Do you feel like the guys that sometimes you encounter a majority of the time when you have those scenarios that men feel like they're being forced into the scenario of sitting with you? Or
I don't force may be too strong of a word because I never want to work with somebody that it's not their choice.
Yeah.
But I would say I'm maybe their second choice or their last choice, which is disheartening to think about, all the people that deserve help and to have the support. And yet they feel like this is their last option. But it's so beneficial for them. But I think that goes to what you were saying of, we aren't really raised to be vulnerable and speak about our struggles or to share with our buddies. Like we just don't get that deep and we suppress it and it goes in and then we have that boiling point or those outbursts. And then there's the consequences that then we have to deal with, which is a lot what we see with anger.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like, I don't know, just from a dude's perspective, you'd get a lot of dudes that are like, I was told to come here. You know what I mean?
Yep. Or they point the finger at their spouse or their kids or their boss. If they didn't take me for granted or if they didn't disrespect me the way that they do, they wouldn't get the response that they're getting. And again, that's pointing the finger at everybody else.
Yeah.
But we're here for us. So how can we look a little bit closer at our accountability for our actions?
How do you break that down? Like, how do you start that process?
So we kind of just pause and start to focus. It's so funny. We were kind of just talking about that of, who's the creator of your life? If we're unhappy, how many times are we going to give other people the power of that choice? And when are we going to be accountable of, I'm the creator of my destiny. I'm the one that decides what I do. And I'm accountable for my happiness and the relations that I'm in. And if that's not working, the only real thing I can control is myself. So we really try and do that perspective shift of, well, let's take that power back for ourselves and really start to look at how we want to live our life because we have that capability. We just have to make that decision.
My question is, a lot of guys always ask, why would I need therapy? Why do you think what you do is beneficial? I've done therapy for quite some time. And every time I do it, I feel like I'm giving this person the story and they're picking from the story what they think I could have changed in order to have a better outcome. So why do you think it's vital for men to have therapy?
Yeah, great. That's the main question there is why.
Yeah.
Because it is such a courageous act to go talk to a stranger and be so vulnerable and intimate and be hopeful that it's going to make a difference. We're investing our time, our money, our emotions, and there's no guarantee that it's going to pay off. So that's a big risk. So I would say it's worth it because you deserve it. And we talked about this last time I was on the show that men can be very logical of if you just give me the recipe or the formula, X, Y, and Z, I can figure it out. And when I meet with my male clients, they have tried a lot of different options and nothing has been changing. Nothing has been working, or it's not a fast enough result. So they're trying something new, hoping that they're going to get some result out of it. And I would tell you, therapy has been shown to be effective. Certain modalities have a very big response rate. So I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist. That's my main modality. So I look at a formula of how are we thinking, how are we feeling, and then how are we acting? And can we gain awareness of what those interact as so that our behaviors are better? So it's a lot of collaborative work of feedback of, well, I had this situation at work. I made an assumption that my boss was being an asshole and I felt disrespected and I responded in an aggressive way. Okay, tell me how that worked out for us.
So tell me about my life. Continue.
And, I got written up at work. I got reprimanded. I got in a fight with my spouse about it. And now I'm worried I'm going to get fired. So for me, that aggression is a coping mechanism of we are trying to survive an uncomfortable situation, like this ice plunge that we talked about. And anger is serving us a purpose of protection and trying to manage and mitigate that boss, to tell them to be quiet and not treat us that way. But a long-standing effect of that is consequences for us. Then we have a bigger problem we have to deal with. So for me, it would be, well, let's fine-tune our coping mechanisms for that type of situation so that your experience is better. So that's what I would say for somebody considering it, is you can look at a real solution-focused approach and see results quickly if that's what we're wanting. But I think therapy is life-changing, well worth it, but you have to find the right therapist. That also is a huge component.
Yeah.
You have to have a good relationship with your provider, or there's going to be a big roadblock for you to try and get through.
And that's what I was thinking. What's an exercise that you would utilize to break down that wall? Because I know for me, I'm exactly what you just explained. I'm very logical.
Yes, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's and again, like I said before, I advocate for therapy. I think it's great. It's funny because for me, it's like, well, that to me, it's almost a waste of my time because I'm like, all right, here's the problem. Here's how we solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I guess if is there an exercise where you can break down the wall a little bit and get people or get men to kind of think hey, maybe we should slow down, talk about it. What's something that you would do to kind of start that conversation?
Well, so if we're thinking about how to gain awareness and be more insightful of what is going on, I would ask them to start to keep track of these interactions. Our mind has a very funny way of only identifying things that serve us. So if we have this person that we know we have a hard time with, we're going to typically only pinpoint things that confirm that bias of, there they are again doing the same thing they always do. And, here's another example of it. So I would have us really start to keep a log of what we notice, and that's gonna affect our interpretation of the situation and get a more reality-based information of really what's happening. And that's where we'll start to, I think, change our mindset, where we can actually then implement new techniques.
Yeah.
So we're not doing that self-fulfilling prophecy where we're only paying attention to what serves us.
Yeah. I think a great example of that is I do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I always jump to assumption, right? But one thing I'm actually grown into is I'm very self-aware of situations.
Good for you. That's hard. That's hard to get there.
I mean, I think the biggest reason is understanding, for a long time, I think a lot of people's issue is they have an issue with being wrong. But it's more it's pretty clear cut. There's always a scenario where you're wrong, no matter what. So for me, the judgment things, it's there. I can't lie to anybody. I look at it, there it goes, doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, I can evaluate each scenario depending on the actual circumstances of the scenario.
Yeah.
So I know, well, in that situation, he did the exact thing I thought it was, but I also put them in the situation where they might as well have just done that anyway
Mm.
because I was too critical, or because I jumped to a conclusion, or because I was, just off-putting, or whatever it may be. Especially going to parenting. I know we talked
Yeah.
about that. And that's something that I still work on to this day, just because I'm so hard on my kids. And when I say that, I mean, I give them responsibilities, and I have high expectations, and I want them to understand when they get out of here, like, it's not sleepover weekend every other weekend. Like, when they get out of here, like, there's going to be a few years where you're working every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You got to figure out a way to make the life that you want to build. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's where I can veer into the criticalness and the evaluations rather than the praise. So then I have to go back, and I have to be like, yo, daddy's being a little bit of a roughneck. I'm sorry. That type of thing.
No,
Yeah.
I have two parts to that. And for me, A, I have zero expectation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that allows that person to live in the moment.
Mm.
And B, if I do have expectations, it's because I held that person to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that their role is bigger. I feel like everybody's writing a story, and that person's the main character.
Yeah.
So if I have those thoughts, it's because I need to get them out of the main character mode and make them someone that's a footnote. That way, you're able to process their actions a whole lot better.
Yeah.
So I think it's just identifying. And when he says he has expectations, he'll tell you, when it comes to my son, your expectations is to enjoy yourself, because you only get a chance to do this once.
Yes.
You only get your childhood one time. Then after that, you got to deal with these adult issues, taxes, all the good stuff that everyone doesn't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So as a man, in all my years of doing therapy, I think that's the biggest thing that I learned, is that you have to have zero expectations, and you have to just allow people to be who they are. And if they show you who they are, really accept that. Like, that's not going to change. That's just who he is. He loves Carolina. I hate it, but that's just who he is.
He doesn't hate it.
Allow that.
He doesn't hate it.
Well, and that's a really powerful perspective, because not having expectations is relinquishing control of others. And that's huge too when we think about getting into problems with people, is you are going to be who you are going to be, and I can't try and manage or control that. I can just let what happens, and that's where we are. And I think when we have those expectations on others, that is us trying to fit them into what we think that they should be or how they should act. And that can cause a lot of problems when they don't meet that goal for us, but they had no idea that's a goal, but yet now we're in a problem.
That's my issue. I have that issue a lot, but it's different.
Is this with the kids though?
No.
Okay.
No,
Majority of mine is in a work setting.
Yeah.
So I have an expectation of selflessness, right? That is a 100% expectation.
Yeah.
Like, and I live that in the way I work, the way I play video games, like the way I do my life, right? It's everybody should be contributing to the team regardless, right? You put in the extra effort. And it's so, like, this is where I get so infuriated, and I'm talking about pissed, because it's so frustrating. It's so simple when you see how easy things could be, right? And I'm looking at, okay, somebody that we work with will be like, man, I'm just not making enough money. All right, stay later. Right? Do what you got to do to be there, right? The more you stay, the more I stay, the better the team looks. The better the team looks, the faster we all get promoted, the more money we all make. Like, it's a group effort. You know what I'm saying? Whereas others, have a very different mentality. They're not necessarily as financially driven as I am, right? So they're like, oh no, see, this is good for me because now I can go live my life. I'm cool with making this much money, and I don't need to make this much money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's where I start to get the expectations. For me, it's just like, I get so pissed off at people. It's so ridiculous. But again, being self-aware, I'm not vocal about it. I'll sit in my own house and he can hear me complain about it for hours. And he does. But I don't know. You're hitting the nail on the head right there when it comes to one of my problems. That's a big one for me.
And you get pissed.
Oh my gosh. It's unbelievable how frustrated it makes me, because it's like, the problem is so simplistic, and here's your solution, right? And it's like, and the other thing, like I said, when it comes to going to therapy for me, it's like, here's the problem, dude, solve it, right? But on the other end of that, I think being self-aware, I think that's the problem of, I would say, probably, I don't even know. I'm just taking a guess here. Probably 50% of some of the men that go in for therapy. If they had a little bit more self-awareness, you probably wouldn't be in the scenario you are. Because one thing I can tell you about me as a man, I can be very, very selfish. 100%. There's no doubt. Because I am an alpha male. Like I run this bitch. Like this is what I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna play a video game, I'm gonna do what I want. And I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Lo and behold though, we're awake for 17 hours, right? I spend 15 hours of the day doing exactly what I want. And then my spouse, can we like spend any time together? And dudes and some guys will get pissed off about that. And it's like, guys, let's face reality, okay? If you're going to be in a relationship, that has to be a priority. You can't get mad when you spend 15 hours if you're not working doing what you want to do, and then when they ask for a little attention, they complain a little bit.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I have noticed that women will do. Women will wait.
Yes.
Gladly wait. And they'll sit, I know, you're single, so you don't know. But
I encourage everyone. That's a battle. It's just like therapy. You have to go into this knowing that the game plan is going to change. Knowing that person.
No expectations.
Yeah, but they're going to evolve, and you have to be okay with the way in which they evolve. And in this generation, I'm still adapting to what's happening around me.
Yeah.
Can you sit back and say, this is a normal experience? It's not. You see COVID, you see these things happen, and people they're changing around you.
Yep.
And you're seeing it from a first person experience, and you don't want someone else's expectations. They'd be like, oh my God, we got to wear masks. No, I don't know if I got to wear masks or not. Let me have that thought process. But you tend to do what your partner tells you to do or what they're doing. I love being in first person mode to where if I want to do it, I do it. Like you always say, Keon, you don't have to go out. You're right. But if I don't, I will never have that experience. Like when we went to St. Louis, he stayed. I went to go see St. Louis.
Well, that was different. That was after the fact.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, the thought is you may not ever be here again.
Absolutely.
Live in the moment, and most people are always thinking about this bill or that bill, instead of just thinking about where am I at right now?
Yes.
How does it feel right now? And how can I keep this feeling going? And with Matt, what we talked about, he has that not dead yet. I walked around with that shirt. And people just kept stopping, asking me where I got that from. And it's like, in the military, they say this. That's a saying that they say in the military. I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either.
But
I didn't know that.
It's huge in the military because it's like, I'm not there yet. You're seeing life and death each and every day.
Yep.
And they just go through it. So he branched that on to a saying that people say. And you don't realize how many people are going through a battle each and every day. I live in this fake world where everybody's okay. But that's not true. You pick up the phone and not everybody's okay.
Most people are not okay. Yeah.
The house is on fire.
You know what's funny is to add to that, because he has that mentality, more and more people will come to talk to him about their problems. That's a lot.
Well, and that is you being a safe place for people, that you're on no bullshit. And I think that when we talk about the stigma of getting help and speaking about it, it takes people like that to be, I'm okay if you're not okay. I want to hear about it. I don't want to live in this fake reality of that we don't have problems, because we all have problems. Life is very hard. But can we be in the present and live for today and have a good time while we're here? I mean, that's a great mentality.
What do you think causes the stigma, or has caused the stigma for men to actually go out and get help? Because there's a video on I call it TikToks. Video on TikTok, that you hear men like, hey, who do you talk to when you have a problem? There's like a laundry list of men that keep recycling the video and they add their own to it. I think it's like a stitch or something. But they just keep saying, nobody. I'm a guy. Nobody cares.
Wow.
Like what do
breaks my heart.
Yeah, what do you feel has like started that?
And I'm gonna stay in my lane here.
Yeah.
Because I'm not would say I'm not a male expert, but I really think it has to do with our culture. And
Yeah.
I think our gender norms, and I think the boxes that we place men in, what it means to be strong, and that you're not allowed to be weak or vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you are, you're shamed for it. And then you never talk about it again. So I that would be my opinion as a professional, that I've seen the intimacy of men and their shame. And I think it's a cultural thing where they don't feel safe being that vulnerable and still having that strength as their manhood. I
Yeah.
really think that's a deeper issue there.
Have you, because I've seen you on socials, you've done a couple, it's almost like outings, right?
Hmm.
To kind of support mental health awareness and that type of thing. Like, does your business or anything have anything set up for guys right now?
So I do support men's mental health. There's an organization that I'm affiliated with that does domestic violence work, but there's an event called Guys with Ties,
Yeah.
and it's for men's mental health, men against violence. So I do go out and I support that, and then I do work with men, but I would not say I'm solely focused on men.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's do you feel like that's the most challenging when it comes to subjects?
Yeah, like, well, are we saying
Well,
finding
like patience. Like,
men?
yeah, working with men, do you feel like that's the most
No,
challenging
no, I
thing?
wouldn't. No, I enjoy my male clients a lot. It's kind of like you eat the same meal every day, and
Yeah.
then you try something different, and it gives you some diversity. Um, because it's like a completely different world of being a man, and their mental health. Of I talked about this a little last time, of just like the burden it is to be a provider, to be strong all the time, and to have nobody to talk to, and then to try and open up everything that you've just stuffed and kept down for so long, to try and pull that stuff out and organize it and make it make sense. It's a very interesting population to work with.
Yeah, what would you say is something that like how would I would love to see if we could put this into action a little bit if you're okay.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I've been asked to go to therapy in certain scenarios, and as even as I was coming up, like what is an opening conversation like we would have? Because I would kind of say, hey, look, it's like I get it, I understand. I'm here because people are saying they want me to be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I look at things and it's so simplistic, and it's like talking about these things. I've always been taught as a waste of my time.
Yep.
There's no reason for it, because at the end of the day, like I still accomplish nothing if I sit here
Mm.
and talk about everything that I'm thinking or how I'm feeling and stuff like that. 'Cause, guys shy away from the word feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, you know what I'm saying? That's the one thing that's kind of curious to me. Is like, what is an opening conversation that we would have to kind of like start to, not necessarily break that mindset, but just to start, the process.
Yeah. I mean, I would just ask you, what is heavy for you right now? What's unmanageable? What in life do we want to change? What would you like to see get better, and how I can help you with making this time worthwhile for you?
Yeah.
I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to not get anything out of this. And I would ask you to be courageous and share some hardships with me so that we can start to make it better. Last time we did our podcast, I had talked to you about a lot of the guys come in and they say they give everything up and there's nothing left
Oh
for
yeah.
them. And you said something, and I didn't call you out on it, but you were like, I don't give a shit if there's anything left for me.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, that's it right there. How sustainable is that belief for us? If we don't give a shit if there's anything left for us, and we're in a family, we're in a relationship, I'm telling you, long standing, is that true that you don't give a shit? Because I will tell you, you do, and it's gonna come up. And that's where we look at that outburst, that passive aggressiveness or the aggression. We are stuffing our needs and our wants for others and making those sacrifices. and it's hurting us. It's like a death by 1,000 cuts. So how can we start to look at what those cuts are and not keep cutting ourselves?
I feel like it's funny that you say that because it's, yes, that is still to this day, like that's how I operate, which is so healthy, obviously. But it's also, I see what you're talking about because again, I have the self-awareness enough to know if I step back in the scenario, I understand where I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's where I can lack is being the person that can prepare properly for it in that case, because I'll work and work and work and provide and provide and provide and do that and do that and do that. And then, you'll see it. I get to a point where like, bro, I just want to fucking be left alone.
Yes.
And then that's the point where now
that's
I know.
the danger zone.
And the good thing is when I get there, like, all right, I'm being an asshole. I'm very self-aware, right? I know. And then, but I think the hard part for me is going to the people that I'm providing for and saying, hey, I need some me time, but
Good.
doing it the right way.
Absolutely.
That's hard for me saying I need the help or I need the time or I need to, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, and when we think about coping, you're talking about the real crux of it there is that we can hit our threshold where we're overwhelmed. And that's what I said, the danger zone. Like, we don't want to intervene and implement coping at that point. We're way down the road at that point.
Yeah.
That's when we're snapping at our partners. That's when we're yelling at our kids. We're using substances for an escape. We want to have that plan in place of, I'm getting a little crispy. I'm feeling a little irritated. I need to start doing things now. Because how long are people going to forgive us if we always push ourselves to that danger zone where, hey, I need some alone time. I can't be around you guys anymore. Like I need some breaks. And it's like, well, okay, is this going to be forever? Is this what I'm just expected to deal with, to have you isolate anytime you get overwhelmed because you push yourself to that exhaustion? So that's where I would have us start looking too of, well, is that a pattern we want to continue?
I think that's a normal behavior as a guy. In all honesty, a lot of people don't talk about that, but that is just a normal pattern where you will work yourself and then you need to self-isolate. I feel like it's Humpty Dumpty. I'm putting myself back together.
How is that for you though? In a serious note, being single though.
Yeah, so
we talked about the relationship thing.
Yeah.
So being single is like if something pulls me apart, something detrimental happens, life happens, someone dies. I'm the person that's putting me back together. Like, okay, it'll be just fine. That person you're supposed to lose at this part of the story. But you were meant to learn something by having that person in your life. I feel like we have encounters for a reason.
Yeah.
So I feel like you don't draw too much towards people. I know that when we talk about gender, we're not going to be treated the same. If I'm a woman and I say, why did my wife yell at me? They're going to look up domestic violence hotlines for women. For a guy, if I say, I don't know why my wife yells at me, they're going to say, okay, she's probably going to appear. They're going to give her explanations as to why she's doing those behaviors. As a guy, it's just extreme. So I know for a fact that I always have to be in control of my emotions. There's no ifs and buts about it. You having the wrong emotion will put you in the wrong, put you in the wrong space. So I know day in and day out, I can't just let go. You can go in bed with your wife and just like relax, take your foot off the gas. For me, I have to always be alert because I don't know who's around me because they want to be around me or who's around me because it's of something I provide. So you're always in fight or flight mode. It's never comfort.
Really?
So you're just running endlessly.
Yeah.
And that's for everybody. You pretend like being single is great. It's not. Because
I don't pretend.
I'm just saying, it's like, who has your back?
Never. I'd rather be alone than try to date. I would. Dating in today's world seems catastrophically horrible.
Dating in today's world is you're not going to match up with anybody. It's not going to be like how we grew up. I like you, you like me, circle one. Like means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Now is how can we do life together? What can we build together? And are we doing life separate? Because if we are, then we don't need to be in each other's lives. Like if I'm decided to be with somebody, we have to have something we're creating together.
Yeah.
Most people are like, oh, okay, no, she's a dentist. I'm a doctor. You guys live in entirely two different lives. The point of this is to live life together and to bring it together. So I'm not looking for a fixated person. I'm not looking for somebody that looks good because we take good pictures. How can we build something together? And I'm not talking about kids, life. How can I feel like this having you in my life was the best decision I ever made? It has to feel that way. It has to move in that direction. So being single in this generation is you get a chance to pick and see all those red flags because they're going to show you. Everyone's showing everything on social media. So you're going to see things you like and you're going to see things you don't like. And if that person is showing you signs, read those signs, digest those signs, and move forward. It's always going to be red flags. So, and that's just with everything. I say, who are my 3 a.m. friends? I can call at 3 a.m. and say, hey, I need you. You call me up and you say, hey, I need you at 3 a.m. I'm here.
Yeah.
You have those type of people. So being single is knowing who has what level. I used to love MySpace because you had your Fab Five. You let everybody know who your 5 friends were. So that was that was my best time of life.
Thing. You get removed off the top 5.
Ruthless, so cutthroat.
Yeah, you'd be so cutthroat. Like when you broke up with somebody, that person got out of your Fab Five and went all the way down to just a friend. So it was just everybody was showing their status. And now in this generation, I can show my status by just the pictures that you see whatever I post. Those people are the people that really matter.
Yeah, that's true. I can see that.
I wanted to come back what you said about isolation and being in fight or flight mode all the time. That also is not sustainable.
Yes, you know that.
Yeah, if we think about that for our single men, exhaustion. And again, like you talked about having 3 a.m. friends. So when time gets hard, do you feel that draw to be by yourself? Or do you connect with your friends?
So no one talks about this part. I have 9 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
So when you have so many family members.
Yes.
You know, it's crazy. I haven't even met all of them.
Yeah. and he's been in my life for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So I have so many brothers and sisters to where you're never alone.
Yeah.
So when I get alone, I'm excited. Like, yes, I finally got some me time. This is great. So it's one of those things. I didn't come in this world by myself. I have a twin sister at that. So
oh my gosh.
You have so many people. I've never had the time to be alone. It's my birthday. I'm sharing the cake. She got one pink side. I got a blue side. Yeah. That's why when we have birthday cake, this is my cake, and I'm just this way. He'll tell you, like, because I've had to share that moment with somebody my entire life. Now that I can do it all by myself, watch out. I'm excited.
Yes. So that's I think an important point too, that you have this independence that you've been able to claim because you've lived in such a tight family unit for so long. That's very nice. Very nice.
So now you establish your own identity.
Yep.
And we don't all, although we came from the same person, we don't all believe the same thing. We don't all do the same thing. We're so extreme.
Yeah.
You have so many different personalities in the room. It's like 9. Hot and cold. I love my family. Yeah. But
have you ever, I wanted to ask you this too. Have you ever encountered trying to help men on the other side of this where it comes to like loneliness?
Yeah. That I was talking about anger with men.
Yeah.
But if we dive deeper really into that emotion, anger is not really what's there. It is that loneliness, that shame, that sadness, that disappointment, the depression. Anger is you had talked about a flight or fight response. Anger really shows up in a fight response for a lot of people. You could have hypervigilance with anxiety. But when we see somebody respond aggressively, that is a threat response happening. And I think with men, we see that a lot more commonly because that's a more confrontational approach to a threat. But when we think of what happens underneath that, it's the sinking depression of if we take away that shield of anger, what are we really feeling that we're hiding from? And it is that loneliness. It's that depression and that shame that if people really got to see me, they wouldn't like it. It's a huge insecurity that comes out. And if you think about people that you've seen that have reacted with intense anger, I think if you would look at it from that perspective, you can see, oh, they're really trying to protect themselves from something. Something has got them very fearful for that response to be showing up. So that's a lot of what happens is anger shows up right away, but it's because we don't know how to handle those really distressing emotions of depression, isolation, and shame.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it's like for me it's almost uncomfortable when you're talking about like go beyond that stuff and get even deeper, and you're just like in my mind I'm like, bro, I never been that deep.
Yeah, I want to stay
I
angry.
didn't even know the pool went that far.
No,
You know what I'm
but
saying?
I think no
That's
one really
wild.
talks about the good part of anger. I think
Oh, anger
like,
serves a lot of purposes.
It's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
When I'm fighting or kickboxing or I'm training, I'm using all that anger because this is fuel.
Yes.
So I look at anger like it's fire. You have to be able to control it.
Yeah, it's not good or bad. It's really not. Anger is not a good or a bad thing. It's a natural emotion that we feel.
Yeah.
I think the aftermath, depending how you use it, is when it's determined whether it's good or bad. You know what I mean? Because I agree with you. I utilize anger as motivation.
Yeah.
Do that.
Well, and anger can be justified and valid and okay, and we need it. It serves us a purpose, just like happiness and sadness and all the other emotions that we feel. But like you're saying, if we're seeing anger come up in unhealthy ways, in maladaptive ways, in ways that are uncontrollable, that's where we want to dive into that deeper, because that's not us having a fleeting emotion. That is us in a distressed state for a long period of time. And the stress it adds to our health, our body, it's not good for us.
Wow. So I guess like when you really break this stuff down, obviously there's always like, I don't know, how do you get people to open up that far? Because that's something.
Trust.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I mean,
yeah.
and nobody talks about that. Most people don't trust people.
Yeah.
Everyone has trust issues.
Yeah.
And especially in this generation where everyone's out to figure out who you really are so fast, instead of just slowly getting to know another person, go through life with that person. It's like, oh, I seen this from the beginning. That's the reason why I'm done. No, that was a response of something that happened before. But if you see Plaxico Burress and like, oh, he shot himself in the legs, like, why does he have a gun? No one's looking at why he had this. They're just looking at the action behind it. You have to look at people and say, you reacted bad in a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
How can you move forward? I think in the wholeheartedly, we're all trying to categorize ourselves as I care about your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I care about your opinion. I don't let anybody have the first say so about how I feel.
Good for you.
And I think that's the only way that you can be a human in this day and age. Forget men and women.
Mm-hmm.
You should care about your opinion more than you care about anybody else's.
Yeah, and that is so hard, because if we think about that negative voice in our head, a lot of times with clients, I'll ask them, when did we first start hearing that? And whose voice does it remind us of? And we get some crazy responses if you think about, well, not crazy, I don't want to use that word, but you get some very intense emotion.
Not crazy?
Well, it's not crazy because it's common, but a lot of times it's my dad's voice, or it's my mom's voice, or it's my ex's voice, or it's this person's voice. And they've placed this really hurtful belief on us that we have, through childhood, through trauma, have continued to tell that to ourselves. And that's that negative voice of, you're no good, you don't deserve anything, you're weak, you're not strong. And that's what you're saying there of, I decide who I am and I listen to my voice. That is such a powerful thing to be able to do. Truly.
I think it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing to do it. So Bruck wanted to do like a bikini.
Bro, oh my gosh, it was a Speedo calendar.
Speedo calendar. Yeah.
Hey,
for the podcast?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to
So-
get it. We
I
had our
love
buddy
that.
Devin. We get Chris. We get you.
Everybody. And the first thing that came to mind is like, everybody's going to see my thighs. I don't care about seeing it's anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going to expose yourself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm like, what are they going to think? And the moment I had that thought, I was like, who cares what they think?
Good for you.
So
Yes.
you had to get past that moment real fast, because you realize you only get a chance to do this once. But most people allow what other people think to stop them from moving forward.
Yes, and that is such an easy trap. It's like quicksand. As soon as that thought of doubt comes up of what are they going to think, it will start to rapidly grow and snowball into an avalanche of what if they think I'm this way and that way. And that is us giving in to that self-doubt, that self-criticism. And that's a thought reframing technique that you've done of you, oh, I'm having this concern. I don't give a shit. Well, who cares? And that's you taking control back of your experience and living in the present and not in the past of whatever concerns we have about others.
I'm going to tell you, and this is going to sound real funny. I used to watch this show called Vampire Diaries.
Okay, I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
And when they do it, they used to have this trigger. Like the moment you become a vampire, you stop caring. Before you become a vampire, you care about how people feel. You care about how people see you, yada, yada, yada. The moment you become a vampire, you stop caring. So you walk into the world and you're in first person mode, where I know they see me, but I don't care what they see. All about my perspective over everyone else's. And I took that and I was like, I'm going to carry that into life. I'm going to just turn off my feelings, turn off that brain that says don't do it and then do it. Yeah. And it allows you to be more free. Like I went skydiving. They're like, oh, you're going crazy. It's crazy. Why would you do it? And then I did. And I was like, I'm addicted to this. This feeling of being free and letting my voice be the only voice that I hear. Yeah. And I feel like that's so important. My dad is 60. And he was like, Keon, I'm going to therapy now.
Your dad?
Yeah. And he tells me, he says, everything that you try to suppress, and I hope everyone hears this, that everything you try to suppress for years on years on years will come back out the moment you start to talk about it. And you'll realize you didn't deal with a lot of things the right way.
Oh my goodness.
It could have been a whole lot of different ways for you to look at things, but you only had your perspective. So he says about being single is I'm okay with the decisions that I make. If I make a decision and I look back on that decision, I say, given the same data, would I do the same thing? I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that's self-compassion there.
Every time. I feel like most people don't have that for themselves.
Oh.
I have to treat myself like I'm the little boy in the room.
Yes.
That he deserves to be protected. He deserves to be looked after. He deserves to be, loved properly. And most people just look at themselves like they got to be that lion or that rock that's thrown around. And no, that's not life. Life is not meant to be hard at all.
Yes.
And one thing I learned from Matt is that you have to get around the right people. So yesterday I came over here and I dropped my son off and I let him play with his kids all day long. And I went to go hang out with my friends. And they was like, they live an hour away. And they're like, Keon, you always come over here. And I was like, you don't realize, like, you get to choose who you want to do life with. And I choose you guys.
Yes.
So don't take this for granted, but also understand how much I value. A lot of people don't tell people how much they mean to them. And they don't know until that person dies or something, erratic happens. So one thing I think that's important that you can get from therapy is knowing how to value people and how to express that value. Like I tell Brooke, I love him.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And I don't, and it's not about just saying it. It seems to me, and it's about showing it and showing up. I think that's all important, and that's what it takes to exist in this world now.
Yes, healthy lifestyle. That is such a healthy lifestyle, because what you had talked about there too, of listening to my voice and doing what I want. With anxiety, we see those what if questions. What if it doesn't work out? What if I fail? But your mindset, which is what we really want most people to get to, is, well, what if it works out? What if it's the best day I've ever had? What if all these good things happen? And that is us living with a free lifestyle and inviting opportunity, inviting success and happiness, rather than worrying about the future that we don't even know what's going to happen. We can't have any control over it, but yet we are burdening ourselves with the stress and anxiety of the what ifs. That's such a powerful thing too to do.
So my question I have for you is, I know we don't have control of that. And this is what I've always talked about in therapy is 10 years from now, I don't know how I'm going to look. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't even know where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
but I know I want to be present when I'm there.
Mhm.
How can I plan? How can a person plan for the future? With the issues that you bring up, do you come up with plans in order to help them delegate those issues as a
Yeah.
therapist?
Yeah. So are we asking if those stressors come up in the future, how we stay present?
Like we talk about Bruck and how he gets to a point where he just shuts down.
Yeah.
How do you get out of that mode?
Why you gotta talk about me?
I'm just saying, like, how do you get out of that mode?
Yeah.
Hey, shoot my friend first.
No, I'm just throwing it
All
out
right.
there. I'm just asking. How do you get him to stop self-sabotage?
That's a great. So that's when we look at a coping plan. So I talk about this formula that we can do. So the one is the awareness. Let's get to know what our hot buttons are, our stressors are, our triggers, our sensitivities. Get an awareness of what it looks like now for our experience. So here's my thoughts, here's my feelings, here's my actions. What do we want to do differently? And then let's put that into practice. So we're going to make a plan of knowing a timeline of your symptoms or what you notice. So we use the you isolating and needing time alone, getting to your threshold. I would be curious, well, what happens before that? What happens right before, in the middle? How do we know when that starts? When do we start to feel I need to step back? I'm getting to the point where I don't want to be around people. And that's where I'm saying, well, let's take some action there of recharging along the way, pausing there, doing mini breaks, doing restorative things like hanging out with friends that we know that are good for us, communicating to our partner then. That way we're not reaching our threshold for coping. If we get to a point where we're always getting to our threshold of overwhelmedness, we want to really look at how we can get that to be more comfortable, more tolerable.
Yeah, that's like proactive self-awareness. Yeah.
Mhm.
See, that kind of blew my mind a little bit. It did, because like I said, one thing I'm really good at. I'm very good at admitting that I'm wrong. I'm wrong 20 times a day. I'm
Mhm.
cool with it, right? A lot of people have that problem. I am completely oblivious when it comes to, like, I get to the point where I'm like, dude, fuck this. Sorry.
That's
But
okay.
like bump this. I'm done, right? I need everybody to leave me alone, right? And I get there. I'm aware enough to know that now I'm being disrespectful. I need to make sure, hey, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
the
that,
apology tour. Mhm.
but I love the apology tour.
She knows that you got to backpedal.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
But imagine if I was able to utilize that same skill, but take it to the next level. Like, instead of being Super Saiyan, now I go Super Saiyan 2, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, man, now I'm getting to that point. It's like, hey, now I can just say it respectfully. Hey, you know what? I'm getting a little wound up. Like, let me just get a night where I can just do me. I'm gonna go do a movie or something. I'm gonna go have a steak by myself. Like, whatever, my
Mhm.
thing. You know what I'm saying?
Because we don't get to those points magically.
No.
We're not just transported there.
Yeah.
And that's, again, when we think about accountability for our life of, is that a pattern that we're willing to accept? That I get to a point where I push myself so far that I'm at my threshold and I don't know how to manage it anymore. And the people around me just have to accept that. This is just how I handle this. This is just how it's going to be. I'm going to have some outbursts here and there. I'm going to do this. And you just have to be okay with that, because I'm not willing to put in more time and effort to take care of myself better along the way. So that's not a stopping point for me anymore. That may still happen. Life is very hard, but we don't want to hit that road stop as often as we have been. We want to get a pit stop further away from that.
That's crazy.
I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
You asked me how do you handle stress sometimes, and how do you go throughout life. I always think that people need three places.
Mm-hmm.
You have your home, you have your work, and you have to have that third place.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows me to manage emotions properly and regulate. A lot of people don't know, like, we played football for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you go from hitting someone each and every day, and then all of a sudden it just comes to a screeching halt. But all your endorphins used to go off. You used to love doing this
Yes.
activity.
You got to add into that too, because we started that when we were 8, and it didn't stop until we were 21.
Big outlet for a long time.
So we've
all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah, we've spent
Mhm.
80% of our lives like, oh, it's cool. I just get on the field and I hit somebody, and that was it. Then all of a sudden the adult world starts. It's like, here you go, figure it out.
and you can't hit nobody.
Yeah.
If I do, I go to jail.
Yeah.
So I say that to say like that third place is important where I can release. Why a lot of people don't know what their niche is.
Yes.
I know I like to fight, but I need to hone in on it. I should
Mm-hmm.
not lose control. I should be like Mike Tyson. I should be a bull, but I also should know exactly how to aim, how to target, how to control that emotion.
Yeah.
So as an adult male, I tell everyone that you need that third place.
Yeah.
A lot of people would just think, whether it's therapy, whether it's the gym, whether it's the coffee shop, you need another place outside of the place that you work to de-stress.
Yes.
It's hard to do that when you work from a remote area. We work from home.
You know what? You know what else is contributing to that? I know this is just it kind of blurted into my mind, but I mean the scenario of life now, how difficult it is to try and maintain a household. A lot of times, because let's use inflation as a great example, right? Things cost way more than they're supposed to, but at the same time, like income is not going up anywhere near as fast as inflation, right? So now I'm forced to spend more time in that provider mode, and then as soon as that's done, I have to try and if you're in a relationship or you're married, I got to try and be the good partner mode.
Yeah.
It's like the
It's a juggling
world,
act.
yeah, it's like the world is forcing you to just like shrink that time where you can go to your third place.
Yeah.
That's why I say you have to build something together. When it comes to a relationship, I have to be with someone that I can build something together.
Yeah.
If not, then we're always spending 2/3 of our time away from each other.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be at my third place.
And it's funny, man, because I feel like we're in your class right now and we're learning as we're going right now. It's kind of weird, but I get this now because then you think about it, even for single people, right? Now you're increasing that workload, like we talked about, but at the same time, I feel like younger people who I've criticized a lot on this podcast, especially for mentalities and lazinesses and that type
Yeah,
of
we
thing.
got into a lot of generational talk on what
Yeah,
I was
we
hearing.
did, and I'm still heavy into that. There's a lot of this younger generation I feel like couldn't handle anywhere near what we went through, but they have access to so much more advanced knowledge because of the internet than what we had.
Yep.
So now they think similarly to where he does already at the age of 18 or 19, and they're so critical, and that's why you see men especially being single for so much longer nowadays, and there's so much more. I'm just going to use the word picky as far as being able to settle with somebody.
Yeah.
So then when that happens, I feel like that prolongs that loneliness feeling a little bit because, like you said, it is true. That's one thing you said is true. And I've been digesting a lot of what you've said already. I'm very good at being alone, right? Because I stick to the same routine. I work, kids, work out, work, kids, work out, and I don't break that. But when I get in that habit, that becomes my entire life. There are no vacations. There are no this. There are no that. And that stem of like a core loneliness builds, builds, builds.
Yep.
So
well, and that when we think about like depressive episodes and symptoms, hopelessness, loneliness, lack of appetite, sleep disturbances, if we are alone, it will build.
Yeah.
And that's a huge symptom of depression is social withdrawal and isolation. And we may need that to recharge. We may need alone time if we're introverted, but it's where we see that we are so exhausted and depleted that we don't have anything left to give and we are riding away by ourselves. And that's where we really want that sense of connection or those three places or our village of who we can call and get ourselves out and about again because we need that connection. We need to feel like we belong to a community or a bigger organization or some sort of system or families because we're not meant to be alone. We get dangerous when we're by ourselves, especially if we have depression.
Wow. I want to switch gears just a little bit here. How much, because I already know you and Ash talked about this before we got in here. How often do you ever run into where the problem can be from past traumas when it comes to men?
I'm a trauma therapist, so my whole lens is trauma.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own trauma. I think that's, a misconception where we think about trauma as something specific. But it's our response to an event that makes it traumatic.
Yeah.
So we all three could go through a same situation, and one of us may walk away from it viewing it as a traumatic experience, and the rest of us may say, that was a Tuesday for me. I didn't view that as traumatic. So most of what I work with is through past pain and painful learning. So we've had these really imprinted moments in our life where we've experienced the worst pain we've ever felt, and we are trying not to experience that again. So when we see a flight response or a fight response or anxiety, our anger, we are trying to respond to our environment to perceived threats so that we protect ourselves from future harm. But what happens is we don't check that perception, where we could be in an argument with our spouse and have that fight response come up, and we're not an actual perceived threat. We're just getting emotional over something with our partner, but we're starting to see our body change, our muscles tightening, our heart rate increasing, our breath getting shallower and rapider, our body temperatures getting warmer. So we are responding physically to something in our environment that seems exaggerative, but that's probably because we're being reminded of painful experience. So we're trying to protect ourselves again.
Yeah. So, like, one of the things that Ash makes comments on me constantly, right, is she says that I have this, like, built up scenario where if something, like, I guess was like, hey, this is a time where we could sit down and we could talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I'm like, that is pointless. Let us move forward, like we've talked about, right? And she's like, every single time she makes this, like this. I'm gonna call it snide, 'cause it's rude. And she's like, hey, oh well, there's your trauma coming out. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? And she's like, you can just be so closed off from the world, because I can be very, very morbid. And there's a weirdness when it comes to my friends and family, right? I have a lot of passion. I want them to do well, and and like, I was so interested when you came on and you told us about starting your practice.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so cool. Like, I want to promote it. It's an awesome thing, and you're helping people, and that's something I get really passionate about, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to a person outside of my bubble, it's if something horrible could happen that goes on the news and I have zero opinion. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, it just happened. And I think a lot of people are like that a little bit more nowadays, but
Yeah, we're desensitized.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
numb to it a little.
Yeah, so it's like, I guess, I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to see what you're talking about sometimes, because for me it's just so black and white.
Mm.
But other people will make comments like, "Damn, you must have been through a lot, because you just, like, phew, just blew right past some of that stuff. The rest of us need to talk about it." I don't know. It's
Yeah,
like,
well, and from my perspective, I would see that as avoidance. So for us, avoidance is a really comfortable coping strategy.
yeah,
Um, that's why we procrastinate a lot of times. But if something to us, you're saying it doesn't seem productive, but I would be a little bit curious of why we view that not to be productive. Is that a way for us to dismiss it as not important because we don't want to confront whatever that is? And that's where the avoidance will show up as, well, that's not important. I don't want to deal with that. Let's keep it moving. I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to do something that's going to distract me so I don't have to keep my thoughts on it. Um, so avoidance is very common when we think about a trauma response
yeah,
of something that is vulnerable or something that takes me back to a painful experience. I just don't want to think about it because it's hard. So I'm just not going to deal with it. So if we're asking to talk about something and you're saying, no, I don't want to, again, if we go deeper, why is there that resistance? We have our partner wanting to get closer to us and talk about something, but we're shutting that down immediately. And I would be curious for us why.
I mean, I love that you say that, but a lot of times when he has like that avoidance, because he knows the person can't really handle what they're asking.
What do we mean?
Like if you say, "Hey, why are you?" I have a son. His birthday's this month. On the 23rd is this month. I haven't seen him in a while, so I just get a birthday cake, say happy
Mm-hmm.
birthday, and I just avoid everybody that day. I kind of like just internalize it because you're gonna get a chance to celebrate with him. future. It's just not now.
Mhm.
So I just take that time to myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't tell anybody else about it because it's nothing that you can do. You can't hold me. You can't help me. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do anything along those lines. You can't even comfort me in this particular juncture.
Mm-hmm.
So it's no need for me to talk about what's going on because there's nothing you can do. So when he's talking about avoidance, it's like most people can't help you in your own situation. So what's the point of me talking about those? And a lot of people don't even know when they're going from one thing to another. Like, how do you recognize you're depressed?
Mm-hmm.
I sit down with my son. I say, "How do you feel each and every day? Because I need you to know what range you're in.
Mm-hmm.
How does this make you feel?" He'll tell you, "I spoil the hell out of every video game. Buy it so you can have that endorphin. Did you need it? No, you wanted it. So you know the difference between your needs and your wants.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when you get what you need?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you get what you want?" So
Mhm.
it's all about knowing your ranges of emotion. Most people don't know how they feel
Absolutely.
when they go throughout the day.
One thing I will say that's he said that kind of hit the nail on the head. Like I'm a very aggressive dude. Again, I'm probably very desensitized to a lot of things because some people will take the things that I say and they're just like, whoa. But it'll be out of a place of passion or it'll be out of a place of frustration or something along those lines, right? And when I've sat and talked about like when I get frustrated and I get pissed, right? Like in my mind, it's I don't know. It's like I could like say just rip the room apart with my bare hands. And then if I go into detail on that, right? Some people they're like, whoa, like they just can't handle the things that like the frustration and the things that can go through my mindset whenever I've ever explained that thing in the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm. Isn't
And
that, oh, that's like exactly what we're talking about.
yeah,
Like, people cannot handle my raw emotions, so
yes,
I don't share it. They can't help me. I've been taught to do this by myself, so I'm going to not talk about it, internalize it, suppress it, and keep it to myself and be alone with it.
yeah. See that? Yes, that's exactly what it is. Because it's at a certain point too. You realize like you get to a point where you're like, I mean, this again. Now it's a waste of my time because I know where this is going to go. I know how far I'm going to get. So I might as well just handle it the way I got to handle it, and then I can move on. I can do the thing, like the distraction. There's more money to be made. I can go make more
Mm-hmm.
money, or I can go
Mm-hmm.
do this, or I can do that. Like whatever it may be. Yeah.
I think I look at it, everything is centered around energy as well. Like if I feel like it's going to drain the energy of the room,
Hey,
then you don't need to address it. But
you're such a hippie at heart, bro.
what you mean?
I love it.
I
I
mean,
love
that's
it.
I felt no. That's just the
No,
God honest truth, though.
he's with the new age. He's like, man, it's all about the
It
vibes,
really
baby.
is. Like if you go into a room and you address me and you sound like you work at McDonald's, like, hey, it's Chick-fil-A, be a little more happy to see me. Like I'm
Yeah.
happy to see you. I'm in your presence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about changing the person's energy towards you. Because when we go to a drive-through,
Yeah.
Mike is talking to everybody in the drive-through. Hey, how you
Yeah.
doing? It's
Yeah.
like this is a 2-second interaction, but he makes sure he talks about something. He recognizes their
Yeah.
hair or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
He
I
treats
feel
them
like
like a person.
yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
it's our responsibility because that's one thing I've noticed a lot, especially when it comes to fast food workers, and a lot of them are high school kids.
Oh, they're so young.
Yeah, and some of them are young in their lives, and they're working during the day and they're doing classes or they're doing this or they're building a dream on the side or whatever. And in some cases they have two jobs, right? So I
Yeah.
feel like it's our responsibility when we go through that. Like immediately I'll be like, "Hey, I love your earrings. Your earrings are
Aw.
dope. Those are
Mm-hmm.
fantastic." They'll be like, "Oh my god, thank you." And then you're like, "Hey, you have a great day." And they're like, "You have a good day." And for like 10 seconds,
They felt seen.
they're happy that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I feel like that's something that's important. I feel like if we all contributed to that, I feel like we can make others feel better on a daily basis.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
literally that's a technique to challenge depression also, is to give gratitude or give thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's paying it forward and passing along good things. So just what you did there, of I make an intentional effort when I see somebody at a fast food place to compliment them or comment on their appearance to where they get something that's happy, and that makes me feel happy.
Yes. See, and I love that. I think that's something that I do quite often. But you're 100% right about what you said. It's like, I guess it's a technique that you can utilize. Being nice to people makes me feel good.
It's
it makes me feel happy.
Smiling is contagious. When we think about laughing too,
Yeah.
that's something. I went to a conference recently and they talked about the power of laughter.
Yeah.
And that our brain, when we think about this with trauma, it's very similar to, we'll have like a trauma reminder. And we see that response because our brain can't differentiate if it's happening now or from the past. So we'll see that physiological response. And they said that with laughter, our brain cannot tell the difference if it's a genuine laugh or we're faking it. So they had us fake laugh for like 10 minutes. And pretty soon everybody was really laughing. But they will say that is a depression technique to look at yourself in the mirror and laugh, even if it's not genuine.
Yeah.
But if you think about people that like comedy or that are comedians and the depression statistics there, there's a lot of power behind laughing and making others laugh to challenge a sense of depression.
How do you know that person is diagnosed? How do you diagnose somebody with depression? Say, hey, you have depression. You had too many sad days in a row. How does that go? How does that happen? In the conversation.
So they have to meet a certain criteria, which this I could get a whole other soapbox on. But if they're using insurance requires a diagnosis. If you are like a self-paying client and you pay out of pocket, we do not have to diagnose you, which is a personal choice for many people. They feel that a diagnosis can, one, be helpful or knowledgeable for them, or it can be labeling and stigmatizing. So if they are somebody that's looking for a diagnosis, there's criteria in the DSM-5 that we have to look at and see if they meet them. So we've talked about symptoms of, difficulty sleeping, difficulty concentrating, irritability, low mood, apathy. So
that could just be a bad flight.
And so there's adjustment disorder, which is a very common one, which is basically like you've had a life stressor that's happened, and we are having a natural reaction to that. But depression has to be longstanding. So you have to have bouts of weeks at a time where your mood has been this way, and you have had these symptoms, and it's impacting your functioning. So I couldn't go to work, or I didn't go to school, or I'm not at the same level of functioning that I've been before. So there has to be a level of impairment. But I'm with you on that with diagnosis, where life is, I think, much more complicated than us looking in a book and saying you have this.
Yeah, and one thing that pops into my head too, especially when you get on the line of depression, like one thing I've found is the older I get, the more intuitive people become about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they start adventuring into, hey, I need to find myself, or I need to do this or do that, right?
Don't go on the hippie vibe, but
you're
right.
The
go
heavy
ahead.
Vibe. But here's the one thing I have found. It's like some people, I'm realizing like how different people are, because there's certain individuals that I'm with every day.
I wonder,
right?
Yeah.
That is now, they're now blossoming into a season of their life where they're starting to realize like, oh, I react this way because of something that happened 30 years ago, or something that happened 20 years ago, or whatever it may be, right? And then they're like, I realize I'm still so far behind the ball. I got to work on me, and I got to work on dealing with these things. Whereas on the other end, it's like, bro, it happened. Move on. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's one thing that really just kind of blows my mind. And it's so weird. A great example. You ever know when you go to your family reunion and the family people always talk about the same shit?
Yes.
They're always like, Scott's doing his thing again. You know, you remember when he did that 20 years ago. He ain't changed. You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead.
It's like one of those. But you start to realize, like, for the other person's perspective, and this is where I always go back and forth. Like, I try to be so open, and I try to be patient with it. But sometimes, you know how it is. You kind of hit the wrong time, wrong place, and you're just like, bro, move on. But it's still like, it's so different for them because it really affects them. And they're really like, gosh, how do I feel about this? And it takes them so much longer to understand what happened, how they can move forward with it. And they need the help. They need people to talk to. They need exercises to work through. They need different paths, like you said, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you've talked about just putting it down.
Yeah.
Do we have to still carry it with us? And
Yeah.
You mentioned your dad. That I want to celebrate him being a 60-year-old man going to therapy.
Oh yeah, but he's an advocate.
That's a
Always
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm going to celebrate that. But where he's now just starting to realize what that stuff looked like. And what you're saying is there are people that accept what happened and drop it.
Yeah.
But there are some people that just, no matter how hard they try, they cannot let it go. They
Yeah.
cannot drop it on their own. And I think that's where that work comes from of how do we feel safe and comfortable knowing that that's still a part of our life. We can't take that away, but we don't have to have that drive our ship anymore. We can be the captain now and we can put that down. And that's hard for people.
Yeah, that's the one thing I have noticed is, like you said, it's very hard for individual people, especially depending on the event that occurred, how long ago it was.
But we all like to be victims, and that's a part that no one wants to
I
really talk
can't,
about.
dude.
Letting that identity go, that's
The
hard.
victim people
You
love
don't want to
that
be a
sh-
victim.
Yeah, people love victim mentality.
But that's really wholeheartedly what people gravitate towards.
I
You
get
feel
it.
more comfortable
but that
when
causes
I'm the damsel in distress.
but that causes a problem
Mm.
for people that really actually have the problem. Because
Yeah.
we all know this, and this is where my skepticism comes in and my roughneck. It's like there's some people that like, hey, I couldn't go to work today because the vibes weren't right, and it's like, bro, shut up, get your ass to work.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But then there's the other people that wake up and it's sometimes it causes them like physical pain. And it's like I have a headache trying to figure out like, and it bothers them, and it really does.
Mhm.
And it affects the way that they move and the way that they do things. So it's like that's where it's hard for me to really open up to the idea of like us being soft. You know
But
what I'm saying?
that's depression in itself. When somebody doesn't feel like the need to go fight through in order to move forward, and you're like, man, that feeling doesn't matter. You can get past it. And you're like, no, this is where I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And I tell everyone, you're a superhero in your own story because you can get through things that most people
Yeah.
can't. I can live through worse days that most people would have stopped and gave up.
And so now you're literally the captain of these conversations and how to help people through these things. Like,
Mhm.
how do you navigate that when you're helping somebody? Like, because sometimes there's got to be some people where you're like, hey, you gotta suck it up a little bit. But then
Yeah.
there's others where they do need the time. Like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that?
So I went to this training and this trauma training, and they said this phrase that I love, and it's be the strongest nervous system in the room. And how I talked about we could be in a group and we all have different experiences, but this stress resiliency that you all are talking about of letting go of that victimhood of we had something uncontrollable that we were powerless happen to us, something that we did not want to have happen, but how can we be resilient in the aftermath of that and continue to grow and not claim that and stay stuck in that moment? So what we do is we work through, I do stagger exposure. So if we think about this coping, let's say we were going back to your example of this isolation, we're going to start to expose you to those stressors that you identified, those hot buttons, and you're going to start to implement that coping plan and give feedback of how effective it is. The more we expose ourselves and work this plan, the more desensitized we're going to be to those types of stressors. We're going to become empowered that we can be resilient to them and see our growth and how we respond. So that's what we'll do is small steps where you actually apply these techniques, you gain exposure in mastering them, and then you're going to continue to build up that ladder.
I mean, that makes sense. And that's an actual plan.
I mean,
I like
you're
that.
still going to have a problem with people that are telling you they're too sensitive to move forward. That's just you have a tough neck about things. When actually, some people do get knocked down and they can't get back up.
Yeah, that's honestly somewhere where I fail as a person. Like I try really hard to be. I try really hard to be very eccentric and outgoing and just be super nice to people that I see. But then when I hear people complain, and again, this is a fault of mine. All right, so I'm admitting that on the internet. But I hear people complain about it, and my mind automatically goes, and it's like, bro, stop being a wuss.
Well,
Just-
I don't know if that's even, that could be a fault, but it's hard for us to see somebody struggling and not making efforts to change.
Yes.
I think that's a big thing of again, when are we choosing to have that be our lifestyle? We talked about choosing misery and being the leader of our own life. If we're identifying a problem, what are we doing about it? And that's a big thing of if somebody's in therapy, we're doing something about it, or we're not really working the work that needs to be done. So if we see somebody complaining about a problem, I'd be curious, well, what's our plan for this? How are we going to change it? Again, if we're talking about us having issues, am I going to say it's up for you guys to just handle that and deal with me being this way? No, it's up for me to make that change and be a better person, because that's not fair for you all.
Going back to like the first podcast where you had the imposter mode, most people don't realize that when you're going through life, you're in imposter mode. I want you to see me as this person that I'm really not. Like, I really like, if I can end every day playing video games with this guy, I don't even care what game it is. It's a great day.
2K, baby.
It's one of those things where you want the world to see you as rough and tough. But in actuality, I don't care how you guys see me. I want to just live this life to the fullest. But we have to put on this facade in this world to make it seem like we care what everyone thinks.
You know, it's crazy. I do that with my kids. I don't care how the world sees me. I don't care. People have said the worst things. They said the best things. It just doesn't bother me. But I do that to my kids. To my kids, I'm invincible. And there's like, they say, "Daddy, are you okay?" I said, "Daddy's always okay." Yes. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can relate to that.
But you're gonna always say that to them, like until you can't. You're gonna always say that. You're never going to be a victim to them. Yeah. So I just take that same approach to life, and I always say, like, if there's a story where I'm the victim, I played a role. Whether it was my choice to be with that person, my choice to be at that particular place at that particular time, I played a role. Most people just pretend like it just happened to them. No, you were first person. You were present. I played a role in this. Whether I dressed provocative and now I got the wrong attention, well, I played a role. Like, I knew I was going to get a certain type of attention, and that's what came with it. So just be cognitive of what you're doing, and people around you are going to have a response to that. Like, you'll wear a shirt that says, he bought me a shirt that says, "Big Dick is in town." I wore it to my son's school.
To the school?
Yeah.
So you realize women are like, "Oh my God, that's so inappropriate." And I was like, I don't care, first and foremost, but people are going to have a response to that. And it's like, it's a great shirt. You probably shouldn't wear it to the school function. Yeah. It's like, it's a clean shirt, baby. So you can't always care. And then you got to be able to laugh at yourself. Yeah. Most people don't laugh at themselves. Take themselves too serious.
I think that was a Father's Day gift.
Yeah.
That's
either way.
Because that's close to your birthday. I think it was, but maybe it was Christmas.
The cup says porn star or porn director. And then the shirt says
so as you can tell, I went to Spencer's.
Oh my gosh, I haven't been to Spencer's in so long.
Yeah, I went to Spencer's to shop for my boy. I think it was Christmas.
That's funny.
But I was
either way, I can't wear the shirt or bring the cup anywhere.
Yeah, you can wear it here. So, but have you ever dealt with anything like that?
Imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Now.
Really?
I mean, I think that's such a real emotion for so many people, where we have such a pressure to try and perform and be our best self, and we want to present the best, but none of us are perfect. It's unattainable. We all have our faults, and it's being comfortable with ourselves with those faults. I mean, that's a real thing. And what I try and do is just be really compassionate with myself, that if you do your best, you show up and you try your best, that is perfectly okay. And if anybody's not happy with it, that's their problem, not yours. But that's a very big thing, especially when you have your own business. In sessions, I can feel it at times where I'm like, is that a good technique to try? I don't know if I did that the best that I should have done, or should I have tried something different? But if I'm coming from a place of care, that I'm trying the best that I can, I have no malintent with anything I do, then I have to be okay with myself. So I really try and practice that a lot.
Now it's been almost 6 months, almost 8 months since you were here last.
Yeah. I think we were summer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had just gone out.
So it's like, probably 8 to 10 months then. So, and that's what you had mentioned in the first one. Like you started your practice and you are really kind of taking off and you have a huge workload. Like from the beginning, you had
Mm,
tons of patients coming in and
yeah.
you were kind of telling us your schedule and it was like, man, you're kicking off, right? Like how has that evolved from, almost a year ago to now? Like, do you still have the same amount of experiences like that or?
I still have, I think when I was here, I was like 80% full, and I'm about like 95%.
Yeah.
I'll take maybe one or two more people, which is really kind of an exciting feeling because I get to be very selective
Yeah.
of, making sure they're a really good fit for my practice. And then I'll put people on a wait list.
Yeah.
So that's, again, if you think with the what if something good happens, what if I keep going and it works out? What if I just don't get scared and I try? You can see all this beautiful stuff that happens.
Yeah.
And the imposter syndrome really is like an anchor of just trying to slow you down and weigh you down. And you cannot give it any attention
Yeah.
because what's the point? What is it going to do for us except slow us down and make us doubt ourselves?
Yeah. So, ironically, a very similar story is my brother recently moved up here with us, and we kind of kickstarted it. Him and I have been talking about it, and we built this screening business that we work on. And
Mm,
because he's been doing pool cages, he's been building them, tearing them down, rescreening the whole thing,
great
patios.
place to have this job.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been doing it for years, and he's literally mastered it. And he is one of the best that there is in the state.
Fantastic.
And I know that because of all the customers and the feedback that they give whenever he's worked on their stuff. And so we kind of like started this business, and he's taken the leap. He left the job to come up here, and he's like, "Let's just do it. Let's figure
That's
it out."
right. Be
And
brave.
yeah,
Oh,
and we have this job that we're currently in competition for, kind of, and we're talking about it's a very big job.
mm-hmm.
It's one of those like outside completely renovating a home type jobs that you see something. Construction is the one that gets these jobs,
Mm-hmm.
whereas we're right now we're a mom and pop shop, but we're throwing our hat in the running, and we're telling them like, hey, I understand this, but we're going to be your best choice. And there's that moment where you're kind of like, man,
Can we do this?
this is
Yeah.
big, man. I
Yeah.
don't
That's
know,
like
you know
that's
what I
like
mean?
what if she says yes?
Yeah, like,
What if she says
yes? And it's
if she
like,
says no, nothing changes. But if she says
if
yes,
she says yes,
now I gotta go to work.
now all of a sudden it's like, oh man, we better be on our stuff, right? And the funny thing is, we are.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing. We understand the process. We have an engineer ready to pull everything out. We're ready to go get permits. We're ready to lay concrete. We're ready. We know the materials we need. We have 4 experts in every single category that know how to get it the fastest, make sure it's done properly, and at an elite professional level.
Mm-hmm.
There's still that moment that we're in limbo now. It's like, we really try to get this job? Like, this
Well,
is
and
big.
it's new.
Yeah.
It's uncertain. We don't know,
Yeah.
and it's worth it. It's worth it to
Yeah.
take that jump and that leap and have faith, and what will be. And look at you guys. I mean, that's tremendous. Good for
Yeah.
your brother.
I know. And we actually just we've had quite a few jobs, but one of our biggest jobs he finished up yesterday. And he's feeling like the best he's ever felt in his life now.
That's
'Cause
beautiful.
he worked for 6 days a week, and he worked Monday till 4. He worked Tuesday till like 1, and then took Wednesday off because it was supposed to be real nasty out. Worked Thursday till like 4,
Mm-hmm.
right? And made more money in a week than he did previous company. It was like, wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Wow.
You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I get it. It's funny too. I gotta add this on. I'll move on. I'll let you. I'm
No,
sorry,
I just
but
want when you asked her how's business going,
yeah,
I was going to say it has to be booming because the
Beyond
the whole world
Needs
it
it.
needs a hug. Like I hate to say it, like everyone's nervous about what's going to happen next instead of just saying it's not going to happen today.
yeah,
Like this is inflation this and so on and so forth. I just look at my current account. Oh, it's good. Let's go. I don't. You can't worry about those things that it doesn't serve your purpose.
Yes.
So right now in the therapy industry, like you're talking about depression, you're talking about recession, you're talking about everything that's going on, people post COVID and after COVID, like everyone was isolated. The first thing they do in any jail is isolate you to check your mental. You did that to the entire country. Yeah, she's gonna be busy for years. The only thing is, you say you get to be selective. You also have to carry everyone's load. Yeah. So I always say therapists need therapy. That's the reason why I couldn't do it. I was like, I'm gonna need somebody to talk to. They got to tell someone what's going on.
Yeah.
And their problems matter as well. You're just sitting in the room and you're listening to someone else's story.
Yeah. And
then you decode how they can go about life better. But no one's giving you time to do the exact same thing. I want to be on the couch as well. But you don't realize in relationships that you're either pouring into somebody or they're pouring into you.
Yes.
And sitting in your seat, you're pouring the entire time. So who do you get a chance to unload to?
Love that question. Love that question. Lots of people. I've created a really nice village for myself. So I have been to therapy. I'm not currently in therapy, but I have a therapist I would go back to in a heartbeat. I talked about this last time. The first time I went was after I responded to Pulse. I got burned out. And then the second time I went to therapy, I was burned out in grad school, working full-time at a police department, being on call 24/7. So yes, I'm a full advocate for helpers being helped. But I also work a really good wellness routine for myself. So I make my hours purposely where I don't have a high caseload every day because I work with trauma. So I hear trauma anywhere from 4 to 6 sessions a day.
Yeah.
But most therapists at agencies have 8 to 10 clients a day with no breaks, like 60-minute sessions back to back. And I don't want to be that type of provider. I want to be able to be present and be healthy. So I have a good wellness routine on how I care for myself. I make sure I eat well. I make sure I move my body. I hydrate. I do things that bring me happiness. And then I have a really good support network with my friends. I have therapist friends. I have a supervisor from grad school that I meet with regularly. And then I have my spouse and I have my family. And I speak my needs. I think that's a big thing too of what we've talked about is being assertive in what we need in our space. If I start to feel myself getting overwhelmed or snippy or not myself, that's a cue for me to up my strategy of, okay, what's my need right now? What do I need to do to take care of myself? Because we talked about that too when you guys lost football. We have life changes all the time. So what we do to take care of ourselves also needs to be fluid. So what may be working right now, we get another added stressor. We have to work more. We have a family issue. We have to continuously make sure we're pouring back into ourselves. Okay, what do I need to add for myself to make sure that I'm not just going with the norm? So taking care of yourself is a huge, huge thing because, you know, I've heard horror stories from clients where they've worked with therapists and I had somebody tell me a therapist fell asleep in their session while they were with them. They're texting during session. They're constantly late. So, I mean, we're a provider. We can be fired. I would highly encourage anybody who deals with that type of experience to fire that therapist and find somebody that respects your time.
Wow.
Because we can do a lot of harm. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can do more harm to our clients. We should not do any harm to them. Yeah. But we can really cause their own trauma of, I'm vulnerable, I'm seeking for help. Like imagine a first-time guy coming into therapy.
Oh, dude, I'd be hot.
And I fall asleep in session on that. They're never going to talk to anybody again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'd be hot. I'd stand up and be like, I guess this shit wasn't important enough to you. Whatever, bro. I'm out here. I'm opening up to you, man. Like,
somebody that pays for therapy, you got to pay at the end. So
you got to pay at the end.
I'm not paying. Obviously, you need a rest. I'm going to leave. I just had an hour of sleeping. Yeah. We know what it is. I'm not. You understand if it's not a value. I feel like everyone is in service of everyone. Mm-hmm. And when you pretend like I'm better than you, it's when you feel like your service is better than mine. Like this is a drive-through line. I'm a Walmart cashier. I'm in service. I'm helping you get from point A to point B. Yeah. So if I'm in service to you, I
Mhm.
should never pretend like I'm better than you. I should never walk around like you don't use the same bathroom I use. Oh, you got a bidet? That's great. Still, you have to use the shitter. It is what it is. So having that, you like, I'm not better than anyone.
Yeah.
No one's better than me. As a therapist, that person has to be of real service. And
Yeah.
when you say you have a wellness, you can still overpour. No one talks about the part of your job where you take time away. When you
Mm-hmm.
take time away, those people still need help. You became a crutch for them. You
Yeah.
became something that they rely on. So how do you take time away in your
Good
current world?
questions. He's still asking all the good questions.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
So good question. When I do take time, I take about 2 weeks over the holiday break, which we know is like a really stressful time for many people.
Yeah.
I will say I do not work in high acuity. So the type of clients I have are not like crisis clients. There are more people that are wanting to move forward from their past, but are still at a really good functioning level. So I think that's an important distinction to make. But I have colleagues that will cover my sessions when I'm away. I'll give plenty of notice and see if I can see them before when I come. And then I'm also always available for emergency sessions. Typically, those don't happen because, again, they're at a place where they can manage. But they have another provider that they can see, and then they can also reach out to me if they need to.
Nice. So I was gonna make a funny comment, but I forgot it. Got too into what she was saying.
I mean that is, as friends we have that same problem, but you just get paid for it. Like a lot of my friends, they just pour into me the entire time.
Yeah, he should really get paid for it. Like, I'm telling you, no lie. There's probably, just off the top of my head, I can think of at least 17 people immediately that either now or have in the last 6 months. They're just like, man, I gotta call Keon.
Yeah.
Keon, he just listens so good. You know what I mean?
And you just realize I gotten to the point where I say I can't carry that.
Yep.
And you have to set up boundaries to say, hey, you know what you're going through? And not to say that this is not important, but I can't carry that.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure when I'm moving forward with a happy mentality.
He does it the way that, like, people without the training do it. It's called the red button on the phone. That's what he does.
I say it nicely. Like,
Say it
Well,
nicely.
I mean, we can't be our friends or family's therapists. It's a huge thing where we want to be there for them, but to the way that we can manage it. And some people will give us everything, and we get to choose. Hey, I can't be there like that for you. I think somebody else needs to do that. And that has to be okay because we're not meant to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's a personality trait because I always tell Brooke, like, I used to date crazy girls. And it's nothing wrong with I do. Nevertheless, is when you say crazy, it's like you see the puppy that's wounded. And you like, if I just implement me,
I could be there.
I can help that person. And that ends up being the worst situation you can do because you're reaching down and helping that person that doesn't care what it destroys in this path. Instead of saying, if this is a healthy, rose, I'm over here pulling all the thorns to make sure the rose feels good in my hand.
Yes.
So it's a problem, and most people have this problem where they want to be the fixers. They want to be the person, like Avery does the same thing. She's the fixer of all writers' problems. And you see it happen, and I just look at it and I smile. It's like, you're going to have a hard life, baby. Because you don't let that person just make their own mistakes.
You got to figure it out.
You got to let
them figure it out.
And it took me a while to know that personality trait. Yeah, I always knew people gravitated towards me. But I didn't know that I love to fix what you view as a problem. Or we always say, like, it's a first generation problem or it's a first world problem. Oh, we have so much clean water that people are taking the shit in it. In other countries, they don't have any clean water whatsoever. So you don't know how good you really have it because you're looking at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
So I always try to tell people different perspectives of looking at things. And that allows you to say, I'm overreacting or this is, and I stay in that world way too long. I should have been a therapist instead of trying to be with that person. I can't hold you because you don't want to put yourself back together.
Glad you recognize that.
You can lead a horse to water, you cannot make it drink. And I think that's the biggest thing too with therapy is this person has to want some sort of change. And there's some people that are just not at that place. They're not ready for that.
Yeah.
And that's something that they have to get to. And we have loved ones that may be suffering, and it's so hard to see them suffering, and we want to fix that. But they have to be the one we know ultimately to make that change.
We got to have Chris come on next time, because that's a huge part of the token, as you met earlier. Yeah, that's a huge part of his recovery process.
Mm-hmm.
Is you have to want, like, every addict, like, it doesn't matter how much you do, whatever, like, you have to want to be done.
It works if you work it.
You want to
Absolutely.
you want to have the addiction stop, or at least stop it from controlling your life. But what do you say we grind out? Let's do. I think we got a couple minutes. We got to rush, but let's do a spice of the week.
I mean,
go ahead and lead it off, man.
To me, it was yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, going to go see friends. Like, you know, you have friends that you talk to on the phone, and I like to be in your face to tell you that you're wrong. I don't like to be on the phone, 'cause I feel like it's impersonal.
Yeah.
So you be like, oh yeah, this person is wrong. This person is wrong. So when I went to go see my friends, and I said, you know, that person will always be there for you. It never showed you a reason not to trust them.
Yeah.
So don't ever lose trust in good people. They really do exist out here.
Mm.
And it was just, if I want to say my spice of the week is letting good people know that there are good people who exist. There are good people around you. You made the right choice. A lot of people don't trust themselves, but you can trust yourself in knowing that you made the right choice with that person. So just getting my flock back onto the right track meant everything to me yesterday.
I love that. That's so good.
That's very nice.
You're gonna love mine then.
Yeah, go ahead. What was
Great. My spice of the week was beating everyone in dominoes, what we call bones. That was my spice of the week.
Yeah,
I had the best time, because we hadn't played bones pretty much since, like, college.
Uh-huh.
And we had a lot of late nights where there would be Monopoly or spades, poker, bones, and we'd be at the table. Like, even the video games got shut down, like everything, and just like a group of four to eight people. It's usually the roommates, and we'd sit there and play. And I dominated the other day, and it was
I wasn't there.
Yeah, actually you weren't there, but still, I was clean 3-0 sweep, baby. And I got up and I said, wow, I guess I should let you guys hash it out. That made me feel real good about myself.
Yeah. Dominoes is hard.
And
the Tokens is just real good at it.
Yeah, Tokens, he's good. But the other two opponents, there's 4 people in the game, right? The other 2 opponents were under the age of 11. But it doesn't matter. I still won, and I felt good about myself. And I belittled them as I walked away from the table.
You didn't take it easy, yeah.
Those 11-year-olds are assholes. Both of them.
That's what I'm saying.
So you got to beat them early.
That's fantastic.
That's not a bad, spice of the
bad.
week. It was a great. I'll be riding the high too, because you got to knock them down.
I just love how Keon's is always like, and then there's sometimes with mine, and it's like, hey man, my shoes slipped right on just right, and it feels good. You ever notice when I have these shoes that I wear, this is something that's really important, and I got an immediate second one. You know, when you slide the shoe on, you don't want to tie it. Sometimes the back of it folds into the bottom.
Yeah.
Sometimes it slide right in it. I don't get that.
Have you seen the new slide-on shoes?
It's like the Hey Dudes or
I don't
Crocs.
know the names, but they're like purposely where you slide it in, and it's meant just for that.
That's what I'm saying. See, that feels good. Then there's another one that makes me feel so good, probably for like 3 days at a time. Like, I feel real good. I get a blanket, and then when I'm making my bed, I call it the one flap. You know, when you flap it one time and it lays perfectly, and you're like, I don't even need to touch it.
Wow.
Like that those little things make me feel so good. Like, so good, Jessica. So good. I don't know why.
It's important. It's
but it's like, it's great. And he'll be like, man, we just had a monumental moment to move forward in life. And I was like, bro, I folded my blanket and it hit right the first time. So that's usually how it goes. But either way.
But don't get twisted. He's married, so he knows the best moment in his life has to be spent with her.
Yeah.
Aww.
Me, it's all with my friends.
I don't think he meant that the nice way. But either way. Yes, I don't. So you got one for us? You got a spice of the week? Something that was good for you?
I do. I had one of my first clients when I was an grad program. So I was still an intern, and I was interning at a private practice, and this person was paying me like $20 to see me because I was still in school.
Yeah.
They followed me to my private practice and then stopped seeing me for financial reasons. And they reached back out to resume services and had really positive things to say about the impact that the treatment had on them and that they wanted to continue. So as therapists, we get some of that, but that was something when we talked about, filling our cup up and not paying attention to imposter syndrome. That was just like, oh, good job, Jess. Like, that's pretty cool.
You
So
made an addict. Do you feel good about that person?
I'm not gonna lie, that's a good spice of the week.
Yeah,
joking.
I was happy. I was like, oh, that made an impact that changed their experience. So I'm glad that they're ready to start again.
Yeah,
do more work.
So let me see how much. Yes, we're just right on time. So, hey, this is a 2-hour pod, bro. That's wild.
I can talk.
Hey, we had a great time.
Yeah.
So do me a favor. You have your camera right there. If you can, look to tell everybody where they can find your practice and how they can get in touch with you professionally.
Yes, so you can find me, Supportive Counseling LLC.com is my website. All my social media handles, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram are Supportive Counseling LLC. My email is jessica@supportivecounselingllc.com. And my Google Voice number for my business is 407-906-5537.
Boom. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. So, again, I got to say it again. I said it last time. Like, now you have to come back because we've got to have Chris on, too.
Yeah.
I love coming here. I had so much fun the first time, and I've had so much fun this time. I think these are, again, why I said I wanted to come. There are people that are listening. Yeah. Like, that one reel for mental health with men had so many views that this is a hungry conversation. People are thirsty for it. So I'm happy to come back anytime.
Yeah. And then to be honest, it's really good honestly for me, number one, because I love talking to different people about their lives and those types of things and stuff.
You have good guests on here.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah. We've had some really, really good guests with great stories, but we also, I think we have a real passion for like understanding different perspectives of the world, you know what I'm saying? And we didn't want to have any limitation to that. But at the same time, like, this is a conversation I never have, not even in my own household. You know what I mean? Like, I'll get the comments like, hey, you should, oh, there's your trauma coming out, or, whatever. Like, hey, you should talk to somebody. And you know what I mean? But it's, sometimes I get going so many things because we're running businesses and we're doing this and you got kids and da-da-da-da-da. And when you slow down and just sitting here for an hour and 50 minutes, like, I picked up 3 different things already. I'm like, I should be more proactive in my approach instead of my self-awareness, instead of afterwards doing the, what is that? The sorry?
The apology tour.
The apology tour. That's it. So it's like, man, maybe I could avoid the apology tour if I was a little bit more in depth in my self-awareness. So so I love it. But thank you again. You'll have to come on again.
Thank you for having me,
Chris. And then I'm sorry you had to meet this guy. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, apparently because I shaved, it's horrible.
Everybody said the same thing. He walked in shaved. Like, he is. Well, technically, according to the studies, he is the most attractive man on the podcast. And
there's studies.
Yeah, there's studies on it. And it's because he shaved. And because he's bald. Yeah.
You should do a poll now. More attractive, less attractive. What would the viewers say?
Hey, that would be great. Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
2 dimes and a token.